Hello, this is Richard Carafel from Agility PR Solutions, and welcome to PR Profiles, a video series and podcast where we chat with experts in the PR and communications industry. We think PR is the most formidable, dynamic, and rewarding field there is, and we wanted to introduce you to some of our favorite powerhouses in the industry. And today we're speaking with Jen Kelley Young, Senior Vice President at CURA Strategies. Hi, Jen.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thrilled to have you. Welcome. So can you tell us quickly first a little bit about yourself and your role at CURA?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm Jen Kelley Young, as you mentioned before. I have been working in PR and specifically healthcare for almost 25 years in the Washington, D.C. area. So I got my start at the advisory board company in Washington, where I focused primarily on healthcare. And from there, it was pretty much I knew that that's what I wanted to do and where I wanted to focus my efforts. So I've worked at a number of agencies and trade associations throughout town, but have recently joined CURA Strategies as the Senior Vice President here. And part of what I will be working on is to really complement the work that the team is doing, which is very heavily advocacy focused. So looking at focusing on corporate communications and thought leadership. But what drew me to CURA was the relationship with Ann Woodbury, the CEO here. We have worked together in a previous job at Fleischman Hillard and stayed in touch. And so when she reached out, it was an opportunity to join a small boutique firm that was really focused on transforming healthcare and working on important work that matters to people. And so I was really excited to join the team.
Awesome. That's a great background. Appreciate sharing that. This is a rapid fire interview, so we're going to just jump right in with the first question. You have diverse expertise across biopharmaceutical, health technology, hospital, and health system and payer spaces. How did you come to focus on this industry? And are there particular skills beyond those already mastered by a successful communications pro that you think are beneficial for a communicator in this space?
Sure, absolutely. I was first introduced to the healthcare space at the advisory board company, where I really found my passion for the industry and realized that it cuts across so many different disciplines. And that's part of what drew me to working in healthcare and focusing on it for the past 25 years. It's incredibly interesting and dynamic. It's important to business, but more importantly, it's important to humans. And that's part of what I love about working in health. One thing that I think you've got to be willing to do is to learn. You have to love to learn. It's a complicated industry. There are a lot of dynamics at play, and I think you have to be willing to dive right in and kind of tackle some really tough topics head on. Great. So I think one other area that's incredibly important in this space is writing. I think a lot of times people take writing for granted in the PR space, but from a communications perspective, it's really the foundation of the work that we do. And I think when you're looking at all these different disciplines and the type of activities surrounding them, the ability to write both in short form and long form is incredibly important. And you have to be able to take incredibly complex and challenging topics and make them easy to understand and also kind of break them down for your audience. And so I think the ability to write well is incredibly important. And from a healthcare perspective, there's no more interesting subject matter that you can dive into and really tackle head on.
That sounds great. And that is wonderful advice for any PR pro out there. Focus on your writing. That's going to make or break you. Thank you, Jen. So you've worked at some of the bigger PR and communications agencies around the world, including, as you mentioned, Fleischman Hillard and Edelman. What are some of the most valuable lessons you learned during your time there?
Sure. I think the main one is to be flexible. I think the thing that's so wonderful about large PR agencies is there is a lot of diverse work available. And at any given time, there's a new project to work on. There's a new opportunity to tackle. And I think flexibility is key. I think it's also really important to say yes. So many times it's easy for us to say no or think about a reason why we don't want to work on a particular subject area or join a particular account. But it's really about the experience you get in working with different teams, but working with different subject areas and different clients. So I think that flexibility and willingness to say yes is incredibly important. That really gives you the opportunity to try new things, to master new skills, and quite frankly, to find your passion. But I think most importantly is to think about the individuals across the organization that you admire and seek them out to learn from them. Because I think at large agencies, there's so many talented practitioners that bring different aspects of themselves to work. And I think finding those individuals that you, again, truly admire and work with, seek them out and learn from them is incredibly important.
I think that's a very valuable tip. There are always mentor type people at any agency, big or small, that you can really latch onto and learn some things from. Great advice. Thanks, Jen. So, one of your specialties is positioning clients as thought leaders, in their industries. Would you be able to share part of your approach with us, and where do you start with that?
Sure. Oftentimes, clients from a thought leadership perspective want to tell you the areas of expertise that they bring to the table, whether it's from an organizational perspective or as an individual. But I really like to take time to get to know the individual or organization that we're working with, to really understand them as an individual, think about their background and experience they have, and the areas where they can really provide a different perspective. It's also about understanding the environment and who's out there speaking on particular topics, but also the topics that audiences are most interested in and looking for leadership in that space. So again, it's taking time to really understand organizations and individuals themselves on a personal level, because a lot of times there's a personal story that really draws out an element of thought leadership that you might not have explored before. And then also obviously matching it with kind of the business opportunity, but also their role within the organization to identify areas of true thought leadership, not just another voice to particular topics or areas that are already out there, but really finding that white space where someone can be authentic and can provide a true perspective that people are interested in and find valuable.
That's great. That's wonderful advice. There is a fine line there. Keep it interesting, but tap into the person's expertise. Those are great. That's great advice. Appreciate that. All right. So what is your favorite thing, or what would you say is the best thing about being in communications?
Well, I think it's interesting because I think the perspective on communications over the years has changed. I can think about so many examples of times when we're working with clients where, from a communications perspective, we're being asked to show value, show the return on investment. How can we measure it in dollars or in patients or in scripts? And I think that that has really changed and evolved as people recognize that communications is really central to the success of their business, both from an internal perspective in the way you communicate with your employees and your partners, but also from an external perspective in how you communicate to the marketplace, but also to partners and stakeholders that value your business or our potential customers or clients in the future. And I think that communications, again, it's just so central to everything that happens at a corporation. And I have loved kind of being a part of that, not only looking at how brand and reputation really impacts business and perception overall. But that part is really incredible. It's just communications touches so many different elements of the business. And I just love the evolution over the years and kind of going from being secondary to really being primary when companies think about their business responsibilities and priorities.
Yes, that's great. Evolution is a good word because the whole idea of the stakeholder has certainly expanded, both internally and externally, as the years go by. So that's wonderful. Thank you, Jen. Now, what is the biggest mistake, do you think, that a comms pro can make?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's a lot of them, right? But I think the main one for me would be not listening to your instincts. I think a lot of times we want to dive right in, whether it's to start a new relationship or with a client or to address an issue that's coming at you very quickly. But oftentimes you need to take a step back, think about what your instincts are telling you, and think about how what you're doing in the moment is going to impact communications and impact business in the long term, instead of just thinking about addressing an issue kind of in the short term. I think it's also important, a lot of clients have a sense of what they want and what their expectations are. And sometimes as communication pros, we have a lot more experience dealing with specific issues or challenges. And a lot of times we allow our desire to please our clients or to say yes to override that instinct or that experience that we need to bring forward in order to chart a better path for us and for our clients. And so I think it's just being really in touch with your instincts I think it's finding a partnership that works with you and your client and really moving forward in lockstep together.
Right, that's very insightful. Thanks. And so, what's something you're really excited about right now, whether it's professionally or personally?
From a professional perspective, I'm really excited about new client relationships that I'm building here at CURA Strategies. I've only been with the agency for a couple of months, and so really kind of diving in, learning more about current clients, but also thinking about new clients that I want to work with is really exciting. I love helping them bring their stories to life and having a true impact on their business. So I'm really excited about that from a professional standpoint. From a personal standpoint, I think like everyone else, I'm excited to get back to a little bit of pre-COVID normalcy. But I'm even more excited about tomorrow, home opening day for the Nats. It's time for baseball and nice weather. And so I have to say personally, I'm really looking forward to baseball and spring and spending more time outside and in person.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I second that emotion very much. Yes, bring on the spring. Thanks, Jen. So, and what advice would you give to students or people that are just starting out in communications? You mentioned writing skills earlier. That's critical, obviously. What else would you think?
Sure. I think writing skills, again, are just incredibly important. You cannot be successful in this field without having a strong writing foundation. But I also think, again, it goes back to being flexible, to saying yes, to being open to try new experiences that really push you out of your comfort zone. That's incredibly important. I think you want to be seen as someone who is interested, who is willing to take on tough projects and tough assignments, and is easy to work with. I mean, a lot of the work that we do really comes down to relationships. And so I think, starting out from a strong foundation is really important. And one other thing I think is that, in this industry, especially in Washington, it is really small. And you come across people that you work with time and time again, whether it's at other agencies, in-house, as clients. And so I think being really mindful of the relationships that you have with your colleagues, with your peers, with your clients is incredibly important, and making sure that you're taking the time to nurture those relationships, but to stay connected because in a world that's so small and so connected as ours is, those relationships are really helpful when you're thinking about what your next career step might be, when you're thinking about switching industries or going in-house. And so I would just say being really mindful of those relationships and kind of following through on the commitments that you make and staying connected with the people that you work with.
That's terrific. Those are wonderful insights and great advice for those beginners out there, and all the thoughts you share today, Jen. Thank you so much. Now, finally, how can people connect with you at CURA?
Sure, absolutely. You can always connect with me on LinkedIn. You can reach me directly at jen.young@curastrategies.com. And you can check out our website as well to see about all the great work that we're doing and to be introduced to some of my wonderful and amazing colleagues.
That's terrific. Okay, that's all the time we have, everybody. So again, we've been chatting with Jen Kelley Young. She's the Senior Vice President at CURA Strategies. Thanks for joining us today, Jen. Appreciate all your insights.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode of PR Profiles brought to you by Agility PR Solutions. And before you go, we have a quick question. Is your media monitoring set up to include podcasts? Because whether they're part of your earned media strategy, or you just want to know where your competitors are advertising, you can't afford to miss out on monitoring podcasts. So talk to your Agility account representative or contact us via our website to learn how you can add podcasts to your media monitoring. All right. So thanks again to Jen Kelley Young. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. I'm Richard Carafel, and we'll see you on the next episode.